talking about these days?
48 steps toward learning from
Muito atenção? Agora já tem que Why, no, I'm sitting
All right.
Well, that's it.
You stick it around? Yeah, we're going away for a while. And then, come back. Yeah, I'm planning on coming back. For how long? I don't know.
Well, I hope to finish up graduate school and come back.
Oh, really?
Where is that season? I mean, I know though. Philadelphia? Yeah. You know, there's a lot of Canadian learning things in kosher candy. I don't know. I just said, I'll show you that copy. I'll take one for later. Unless you want to do that.
So you're graduating this?
One more semester.
Oh, so that's good. So that what time would that be then?
Mid-July.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, probably. I don't think I'll be around that. Is that right? Yeah, I think I'm summertime. You know, 1 week travel somewhere. Well, believe it or not, I've never been like out of the country. I've never been like anywhere. Really, so I want to go. I don't know. See something to the.
You thought places that are probably affordable right now, pretty affordable.
Europe or something like that.
Europe, yeah. There's a couple of really hip kind of one is the younger kind of tourism things on the internet where you can read profiles on things and places like your town. You can ask, where you'll see plenty like how easy is it to find whatever, to do whatever, any game of it. What's the best? There'll be like 10 hostels or whatever these hostels, and like these ones will all pretty much have a stranglehold on all like coverage and Patterson's tour guides or whatever. You only hear about them, but there's like all these other ones. A lot of things are done on it.
Yeah, actually, I'm
that season to be here in
there's a particular tour company that kind of like caters for those 18 to 35-year-olds, young adults. So I've tried to their website a few times, trying to agree with a friend of mine, or maybe get them on the tour. Another friend of mine had taken a tour with them a few years ago. So he liked it, if you like to structure the tour, he'll send free time.
Yeah, I'd like to do a tour. It's every time I travel, I do it on my own. I'm like, winging it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. I would love to check out Scandinavia. Before I get married or after I get married. Somewhere around there. Hopefully any of those things happen very soon. Yeah. Yeah, Iceland would be wild. I like Scandinavia. It'd be pretty neat. The other thing is galactically designating time. Depending on the season that you're there, it will be sunlight for 24 hours. There'll be things like that. Issues like how do you do Shabbos, how do you do this, how do you do that.
You have a good Scandinavian report.
I like a lot of bands from there.
ABBA?
When you learn this music, tell me how to get it in. Yes. Not ABBA. ABBA. You anticipate setting up shop in Staten Island and return to the crowd?
Well, talked a little bit, and I could do on Chicago at the beginning of September. Graduate school stuff. Yeah. I didn't mention something. Yeah, I'm going to graduate school in September. Yeah, we're fine. Well, it's technically necessary for the basketball program in social science. We do British Chicago. Particular program or?
Yeah, some version of that is free.
Nothing to say. Yeah, I don't know that much about that.
We came here pretty recently. I think we came here pretty recently.
Yeah. So the problem is and we consider them when I
First arrived, they have my sense, not getting the
cold in here. It is a little cold in here now.
kind of run the line from students
Right.
back in
Right.
You like Queen?
It's not the program you're trying to learn.
You
British in Queen. I don't know what.
You don't like Queen? Queen is the best. Queen to me is better than the Beatles.
There's some thing like music at funeral. There's something like popular music at funerals. And for the British, the number one song was Who Wants to Live Forever, I think.
I'm trying to do it.
I'm really serious.
Really? It's actually a very good music.
Oh, Rabbi, that fun book I saw at Vesuvius.
The one I saw had?
Yeah.
Spoke very well last night.
Thanks very much.
The supervising last, the city, a filmmaker, was a fellow here for Shabbos. You probably noticed him, here, so from Toronto. He didn't have Shabbos clothes on. He had jeans and yeah. So he's his father is Greek Orthodox. His mother's Protestant. His grandmother was Jewish, and they converted to Christianity. So he really comes from Western ground zero. But he wanted to be a filmmaker actually. So we had a long discussion in the house by the night from 8 till 3 in the morning. And one of the things we just talked about is why Orthodox Jews are opposed to movies. It's a long part of our conversation. So.
I don't think Orthodox Jews are actually opposed to movies. It's the concept of the movie.
Right. Well, that's right. The content of the movie, right? Which
People have issues with the media itself. That's true.
No, yeah.
People have issues with the media itself.
Yeah, we tried to talk about the difference between art as art and art as a refining element of society. So like a new concept for him that art should lead to refinement. What?
That art has a purpose and a place.
So what is the purpose?
In human history, art has not been something that any more than music or anything has been divorced from a greater context. I mean, in the modern era, these things began to become secular.
Yeah.
Science became science instead of one of several sciences. One of several things. So that's how you teach it. I mean, as an art person for a while, the assumption was that art was just done, and there was no context, no purpose, there's no framework to fit other than what you made up in your head.
So I haven't really fully realized that until you explained it to me.
That's the norm.
That was the point you made. Okay. Anyway, let's get back to Pirkei Avos. Who doesn't have a handout? Anybody need it?
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Did I do something bad? Yeah. Oh, that's not good. I was supposed to make another photocopy. I didn't realize this. This is about finished with this one. Alright, that's right now. Alright, we'll do it outside because he only has actually one line. One line and so it doesn't matter. The next he wants, Let's go back to page 582. The next one, he doesn't actually have a, the Maharal doesn't say very much. We are up to the attribute, which is the last one on the second to last line, which was the yishuv. And we spoke about that yesterday. We said the yishuv means that a person should be deliberate and carefully consider things which before he says them or engages in them. And the Maharal just says, with the hand up two lines. At the bottom of the bottom left-hand column, he says, halacha, how you bathe. The 12th aspect is the yishuv. Terush should be yishuv adas. He should have tranquility of spirit. Shim ein dato l'shevet alot. If he doesn't have, or not tranquility, calmness of spirit. Because if he's not calm, ein yochol lilmod, he can't learn. So basically, what he's saying is that if a person constantly is distracted, so it's very difficult for him to study. I once had a Rebbe many years ago who said to us, this is when I was in high school, he said to us that if you would think about the same issue and concentrate for 5 minutes straight, you have no idea how many problems you'd be able to solve. The problem is that very rarely are we able to concentrate intellectually, not daydream. We're able to daydream for long periods of time. But to think intellectual thoughts for 5 minutes straight is almost superhuman feat. I can tell you because it's many years later, and I still find it extremely rare that I can think about something for 5 minutes straight. I've written 3 books and many articles based on 30-second spurts of thought. That's the way it usually works. Most people have 30 seconds of thought, or maybe 45 seconds, and they immediately get distracted and start thinking about something else. So it's like, a computer which multitasks. You do many things simultaneously. So you can't think, and you come back, think, come back. And that's not so good, because that way, of course, nothing ever gets completely thought out, but you have just snips and snippets of thought at various different times. So that happens a lot, and therefore we fall short in what we're able to understand fully, because in order to achieve full understanding, a person really has to be engaged, not just that he's calm in the external sense, that he's not distracted by all sorts of outside stimuli, but that inside his mind he's able to focus and concentrate himself. So again, it seems that once upon a time they were able to do that to a much greater extent. Today it's very, very difficult. I think it's part of the American, or the modern, I should say, the modern, not mentality, but the modern personality that prevents us from doing that. I saw many years ago, I don't remember when it was, sometime I think in the mid-80s, early 90s, in the Consumer Reports, there was an article in which they said that in the 1950s, the average American saw in the course of the day 1,200 pieces of advertising. Billboards, bumper stickers, newspaper ads, television commercials, radio commercials, things, slogans on shirts, all sorts of things, 1,200 a day. And that, when this article was written in the Consumer Report, so again, it was about 10, 15 years ago, it was 3,000 a day. So if a person, the average American, is subject to 3,000 pieces of advertising a day, and of course advertising is meant to distract you from whatever you're doing, so then it's very difficult to think to begin with, right? In the course of your waking day, you have lots and lots of distractions just from advertising, right? Forget about the other distractions. And somebody once told me that if you watch the television news for any length of time, then you will see that they change change cameras about once every 7 seconds, or quicker, because the average American's attention span has been figured out to be 7 seconds. So therefore, if the camera angles remain the same for more than 7 seconds, the average American's attention would begin to wander. So therefore, they have to actually change camera angles to keep you engaged in what you're watching. So this is it's a difficult situation which we find ourselves. Everything conspires to get us not to think, and that's why, of course, we're not so smart, because we don't think that much. But that's what you said last night, right? Wasn't that one of your statistics?
Yeah.
So,
That's one of the reasons why our sages was on such a different level, because I was trying to get an understanding of why these human beings in the past were like so much more amazing than us.
yeah.
And is this one of the reasons why? Because they have more of a focus of their
I
mind.
believe so. I think people can train their minds. What do you say? To think. What?
It seems like, I heard that from how you were talking, I heard about, it seems like, yes.
Mm-hmm. that people can train their minds to concentrate more.
Also, like, the biggest deal is dream, daydream. We call biggest invention. And as you know, like, sometimes you have long dreams, like real dreams. But really people say it's like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Sometimes I know, like, I can wake up at like 4:40, and I like right when I fall asleep, and I like long dream, and I wake up again like 4:45. That was 5 minutes. But all great things they come like you don't need to think, or they come unconsciously, like mind processes by itself.
Yes.
But the mind is working while you're asleep, and that's why, some problems that you tried to deal with while you were awake, and you couldn't come up with answer, all of a sudden, the mind comes, it's like a computer working on its own.
The prototype of the absent-minded professor is a very good example, because the reason why a professor is absent-minded, what?
Is that a book?
No.
It's called what, sorry?
With Disney film, but besides that became a part of the American West. Yeah, filmmaker. So,
I think it's that vaguely, what was it called? No, that was Flubber.
yeah, Flubber, right.
Absent-minded professor.
Absent-minded professor,
I think it
yeah.
might have been the vaguely movie.
So the material he invented was, I think, called Flubber. So it's something like that. So anyway, that's a stereotype. In fact, my father-in-law is a math professor, and he really fits the mold perfectly. Because he's able, and my wife also has this, to lose himself in thoughts. Now, it's not daydreaming. He can actually focus on a thought in higher mathematics. I have no clue how higher mathematics work. But in higher mathematics, for a long period of time. And you can't actually, if you try and get his attention, you see that you're actually disrupting his train of thought. Like he's coming down from the upper hemisphere, upper realm, you're bringing him down to earth, right? So in fact, that capacity to concentrate is something which, people do have, even today, people who are like that, fit that mold. And I'm sure that's really understand that the sages were able to train their minds, to focus their minds to such a great extent that they're able to accomplish far more than we were able to accomplish. Right? That's basically how we understand the difference between previous generations and our generation. The more distractions that there are, the less capable of thought people become. By the way, one of the great conspiracies to prevent people from thinking is computers. I don't know how many people use. I can use computers extensively. And they actually do not facilitate thought, they actually deprive a person of the capacity to think. So you're constantly doing little tasks which are not totally not relevant to the issue at hand.
And the thing is to convince you that it's more efficient. Efficiency is part of the technopoly of how the world is now. Is convince you that efficiency inherently has to think, regardless of the efficiency of what you're doing. But the Rabbi mentioned before some of R.A. Kaplan's books in his Jewish meditation when he mentioned the nature of some not altered states in the grander sense, but mildly altered states wherein one goes into these modes like this, and that it is historically, it's quite normal that the situation was where people were trained in accessing and utilizing these modes and extending them and really taking advantage of them, and that some of the things that we've learned itself were composed the way they are and set up literally to stop the text itself, not to be read, but to be remembered, to be memorized, to be committed to memory, and to make the connections between things, even down to the way the syntax and sentences are structured, are basically remembered, not even text to text, but concept to concept between them, and the way literally they're made is in your memory that they would be able to fit together that way. So it's not out of the question for some of these things to be done now, but we don't know what to do with the amount of time. It's 24 hours now and 24 hours then. We don't properly know how, in terms of putting these things together. And then the world literally works against us doing that.
In Hasidus, it's understood, the Hasidic thought, that the way a person achieves prophecy is by ever greater degrees of focus and concentration internally. I mean, every Jew it's hardwired to accomplish prophecy. The question is just that can he tap into those depths of his soul and accomplish it? So obviously it takes, the way Kaplan and others put it, that takes a lot of years of training and it takes a lot of focus. But the deeper a person delves into his own self, the more closer he comes to prophecy. Even if he doesn't actually become a prophet, but he comes closer to prophecy. In fact, if you have Fessner, the Quentin with Thomas Shapiro, in the Student's Obligation is his book, the translation of his book in Hebrew, beautiful book, it's worthwhile reading. He says that yeah, the whole purpose of a person's life is to try and delve as deeply as they can into that power of prophecy, and to try, even if you can't become a real prophet, but to hook up with that power which you have within you. And that's part of the reason why they believe, the Cartesians believe, that there is no need for external proofs. I think I spoke to this with a couple days ago. There's no need for external proofs or evidence of God's existence or the validity of Torah and all that kind of stuff, because it's inside your soul. If you just get in touch with what's inside of you, then that is the greatest proof or evidence, and you don't need to have any external proof or evidence. It's an interesting concept. In some way it involves deeper thought, in other ways it's kind of anti-intellectual. It involves deeper thought in one way, internally, and it rejects kind of deeper thought externally based on going and studying different things. So it's an interesting paradox.
You know, we have to make a differentiation between mathematical thinking, which is logical, pure logic, and philosophical thinking, where you establish connections of intellectual creation. When you establish those connections, there is an emotional component involved. Even though we try to abstract it and make it intellectual, it's still emotional. That's why they have to feel that way.
That's a good point, right. So yeah, it's not pure, right, that's a very good point. There's an emotional component in their thought.
Intuitive.
Yeah.
Emotional.
Well, intuitive is not exactly
If you have a problem that
it's closer to intellectual.
realization that anything that comes to you from outside your body is not true. It's a perception of truth. Nothing that is outside your body is the truth.
The fascinating thing.
It's a perception of
Rabbi Dessler writes exactly the same thing. I don't remember where he writes it, but he writes it somewhere in Wisdom of the Structured Truth in English. He says that most people live by the perceptions which come to them by their senses. And those perceptions come by their senses are inherently not false, but misleading. A person has to actually live by those things which are within, with the perception which he has internally, and work from his inside out, not from his outside in, which is really what you're saying.
Then you have the tricky part of actually differentiating what you think is within, comes from within you. Or it's actually just being placed inside of you by the society.
Right, it is very difficult.
Such a very...
I'm sure. Right. It's not easy. So they're absolutely right. That's what a person has to do. That's all this a person can really only do if a person has the capacity, and most people do not, and I include myself in most people, most of the have the capacity to actually think for long, or at least 5-minute periods of time, undisturbed and calmly. It's a very difficult thing to do.
So, can I ask you, I don't know if this is an appropriate question, certain kind of drugs, is a Jew allowed to smoke marijuana?
It's a good question. I will answer it. But,
You will?
I will answer it. And the Gemara says in, so who's recording this? It's okay, just don't distribute it. The Gemara says in the Sefer Sukkah, the Gemara says that Hamra v'Chani Tiksin. It says, it's a very difficult Gemara at first class. It says that wine and fragrances make a person smarter. So the question is, what are wine and wine and fragrances make a person smarter? If anything, I would think that wine distracts the person from thought, and what fragrances have to do with it. So it would seem that what the Gemara is saying, first of all, with wine, you see that still in Chabad Chassidim. Obviously, alcoholic beverages are a large part of their divine service, and it's because it puts them into a higher state of consciousness. And also it seems that there are certain smells or fragrances which also put a person into a mode in which their mind works better. Now I have never had marijuana, so I can't tell you how it works. But it. So you want to tell us?
I had a roommate at university who was doing his PhD in sports science and the use of marijuana in performance, and it's quite intriguing. There are two drugs that I can't see that are a problem. One is marijuana, the other one is magic mushrooms. What you were talking about, I had an experience of magic mushrooms.
Are they actually mushrooms?
They are mushrooms, yes. Which was the deepest, most incredible experience I've ever had in my life. I actually discovered something out of Turkey Atlas without even heard of Turkey Atlas, almost word for word. And I'd never read it. I never knew it. But one of the things magic mushrooms does is it focuses your mind And you can do it without magic mushrooms, it might take 30 years. Martial artists do it,
But does it do to your mind? I'm sorry.
Sorry?
But does it do to your mind?
Focuses your mind.
It focuses, it
Yeah.
doesn't distract you.
No, the first few times you take it, it's like a new toy. You don't know what to do with it. It's just fun. And you play with it. So I've taken it 10 times. It doesn't take me for a long time. And the 10th time I had it, it was like no longer a toy. And it was almost like, wow, I'm actually thinking straight, and nothing's distracting me.
So why did you stop there?
Why did I stop taking it?
Yeah.
It's really easy to take in Thailand, where you're on a really nice island. It's safe. It's different if you take it in a country where it's like dangerous to walk out your front door because you're not in touch with the dangers, the reality. You might get run over, or you might try to jump the building. Whereas in Thailand, like you set your parameters, like don't go in the water. And
Well, you're saying you lose control, in other words, when you're under the influence of the drug.
You don't lose control. You have
You lose control.
Lose.
No. Basically, it's completely the opposite. All your senses work more. I mean, the other thing that Einstein said that we use like 5-10% of our brain.
Great.
All of a sudden, you're using all your brain.
And it takes it to a state of trance, and like, you just sit there. You
No,
can
no,
recover
no,
without...
But how is your sense of reality?
You can recover. It's a slightly state of, like what you describe, people describe as a trance. And you don't have any, like, you don't have boundaries, and it's not dangerous. You can touch something with your
No,
card.
sorry, I don't mean that. You do have boundaries.
And it's external. You need to look whole, and like,
But you have it, look, it's your mind. It's your mind. It's not like
We're
something
talking about a
else.
lot of different things at the same
If
time.
something is hard, I don't need to think. I just come to like boiling, the thing is boiled, right? I won't touch it because I'm conscious I know it's dangerous. I don't need to think about it. But you, like in such a state of trance, okay, so it's dangerous, I don't need to think. But you need to put some emotional effort. Like you drive and you do it unconsciously. Like you space out, you know where to...
You mean without us.
Right, right. You can drive it out right, right, that's it.
That often happens. You're driving along, you think, actually, where did I get here?
Right.
You need
That's
to
what I said.
very different things. You move some external blocks, you might get external. Like Judaism, instead of having internal blocks like complex, like you can't talk to ladies, you can't do this. Other people without Judaism, they're very not uncomfortable talking to girls, they're very not comfortable to do all these things because of internal state. Judaism makes this boundary external. I don't have problems to talk to girls, but I know it's like it's awesome, right? Like I don't have problems with straight food. But I use my brain instead of like using my emotions. Is this correct?
So are you asking when you're on drugs if they will go? You lose all those senses.
You use it internal. You have the need to think about it. You need to
Well, maybe let me explain more. It's more kind of like when you're magic mushrooms, when you pick up this cup.
Yeah, I should sit down because I didn't I gave it education.
Your awareness of things is incredible. Like you pick up the cup, you don't pick up the cup. Like normally you just pick up the cup. Because your senses are working at such an overdrive, you're like, wow, okay, there's the cup. And you feel it. And all your senses, everything you feel. Then there's certain things kind of like, it's really bizarre how your mind works. I need to go back to my hut. And I'm standing on the beach and I'm thinking, okay, now it's that way. And I'm walking along, and I stop, and I'm lost. And there's just trees around me. And there's no point of reference whatsoever. And I stand thinking, oh, where's my hut? And the trees all look the same. And all of a sudden my hands just lift up. And on my hands are a whole line of skulls. Green skulls with red eyes. And I'm looking thinking, where they come from? They're not dangerous or anything, they're just like there. And they start looking in a direction and I just follow them. And then I stop, and then they disappear, and I put my hands down, and there's my hut. And it's kind of like, okay, I've got no idea how I found my hut. And what it is my brain, basically, my brain is working on senses that I'm not used to. And that sense is like, you could close your eyes and you could walk through a forest, and your brain has recognised the sounds, everything around you. You're accessing parts of your brain you never even realised you had. How did I find my way back to the hut? There was like trees, there was just trees everywhere. If you were to put me back there, in a total sober state, I could never have found my hut. And it's incredible what it does to the senses.
I did think it's the complete opposite of being drunk, though.
It's the completely opposite.
Yeah,
it's not necessarily, no. It's not, because it's having an hallucinatory experience. That's what you had while you were under the influence of drugs. But I'll tell you another story. About 45 years ago in South America, they were using LSD in order to expedite the psychic processes the idea was so you only need to be for 15 or 20 years in analysis in order to work out the capital problems and never using LSD.
In the therapeutic context.
Yes, but it never worked.
Well, LSD is a bit scary because LSD is not natural, and I would never take a substance.
Well, all of these things boil down to chemical compounds, and different chemical compounds cause different things.
That's right.
DDT is very bad for you. You know, DDT, it's a chemical, it's a pesticide, it's a set of chemical compounds that were made to design, like LSD, is a design thing to do certain kinds of things. So the consequence being it also made interruptions in the egg cells for eagles, and eagle eggs did not last very long. It's a chemical, but then those compounds are also naturally occurring compounds in different contexts, like DMT. We won't get into it, but these things will down to chemical compounds. One set of chemical compounds makes you drunk, stupid, and results in alcoholic poisoning. Other compounds result in these reactions in the brain. This drug causes something that can be called a trance, wherein your body does not respond to this, and this, wherein you are blocked out from the rest of the world. I mean, all these lots of different things cause lots of different things. Lots of different food has lots of different situations in different spots. And it's not something that is a uniform discussion. This is a trance, so that's the same thing that is what you experience, which is this, where the same sets of hallucinations are had that are neurological ones, that are things that your eyes are, your retinas are not responding to an external stimuli, whereas other ones amplify.
Your brain is.
Your retina is not, but it's not in your brain.
Well, how do you feel emotionally when you're on this?
Oh, you have very strong emotional reaction.
And it's very dull.
That's part of the therapy.
Before I ever saw the drug, I tried to find out as much as possible. I didn't want to go into it. It's scary realm without knowing about it. It saturates the way people
Brings down the
You should never, ever touch a drug if you're depressed. Because I was happy, so I was happy. If you're depressed, there was actually one moment when I actually had fear. One moment where I started getting paranoid.
And that's very dangerous.
It's very dangerous. And it was actually the night that I had the deepest understanding. And I walked away from the people I was with. And I walked away and I stood on my own. And I confronted it. And I realised that the only thing is it's you. You've got nothing to be scared of. And this is for people that realise at the time that they're depressed because it's something that's making you
Oh, yes, you have something to be scared of.
Not if you're in control of your mind.
You know why LSD became illegal?
Well,
Because people killed other people under the influence of LSD. So you should be scared.
Well, if a person's an angry person, that's a...
No,
No?
because of their sensory experience. They became paranoid. And they live in that paranoid delusion.
Clinical assessments.
I've only taken LSD once. It's what it's like, and I've never taken it. And the mushrooms and LSD are two completely different things. One is made by Hashem, and one is made by man. I don't trust drugs that are made by man.
That's the But one is a set of chemical compounds where this is a pattern, and another one is a set of chemical compounds where this is a pattern. That's not denying what you're saying at all.
Any scientist who's worked their results in anything realizes that they are nothing compared to the reality of what is really going on. No scientist knows anything about the totality of what they're doing. So there's a difference. A mushroom, a magic mushroom, Hashem knows the totality of it. But the scientists just think they know the totality of it. There's a whole world out there that they've got no idea about.
Okay, let's go back to marijuana. What does marijuana accomplish?
Marijuana.
So I have to tell you, there's an opinion that, or whether I happen to be down as living to that part of the incense in the base of Mikdash was cannabis, was marijuana.
This is the stuff I want to know. Marijuana is more stimulant, but I don't think that works because it calms you down and it slows you down. And I know this one guy, the only two drugs he takes, and like when you say drugs, he won't watch television. He's like a nomad. He doesn't eat any food unless it's off trees and prepared. He doesn't eat chocolate, and that's a drug. He won't eat anything unless it's completely pure. And he takes two drugs, one is mushrooms and one is marijuana. And the reason he takes mushrooms, well, he tells me he comes from a nomadic tribe from ancient Poland. And he's a very, very holy man. He's quite an incredible guy.
So how did you meet this guy? You don't have to answer.
I'm sure you have to expel.
Next time, we were looking for magic mushrooms in the field. And he was standing behind us with the staff with a feather coming out, a wooden camouflage plate with a big long beard and massive mushrooms.
That was the whole story that I have to get.
Yeah, it will fit retention. Well, that's whatever. This is the wrong season to be taking it.
No, it's really funny. I wanted to touch it to make sure I wasn't imagining this guy. This guy was incredible. His mind. He came to our house and he read some poetry. Never heard anything like it before in my life. This guy stood for 5 minutes reciting poetry on the paper. He'd written, word perfect. And he was like, how does he do that? He does it because he takes mushrooms and it focuses his mind. And he takes marijuana because he has to take marijuana. Because if you ever met anyone who lives on magic mushrooms, you won't understand a word he's ever saying.
Hardly enough.
They're expensive. We'll go so quickly, they'll go through everything like it so quickly, like what you're saying. If you thought for 5 minutes, so straight, it will be incredible, but nobody else will be able to understand what you're doing. And you have to take marijuana to slow yourself down, to bring you to a speed that you can actually relate to others.
And you listened to him while you were under the influence?
Sorry?
Or you
No, He does poetry nights and people listen to him and it's like, pretty much so.
Okay. So all this goes into issues here. It's a calm mind. So, and a focused mind. Obviously there are, so getting back to that Gemara, obviously the Gemara felt that there were certain things, substances, I don't know what they were and how they used them, it doesn't say anything about mushrooms, but they were obviously used in order to focus and a mind, in order to get a person's mind to function in a higher, better way. I think, and part of the attraction to Yeshiva Bachram in smoking, when smoking was okay, was the fact that it helped them to focus their mind. I used to smoke a pipe. What
about...
Until I got engaged.
I have that before.
I know. But you're right. It's not necessarily the thing itself.
That feeling, when they drive themselves into a state of ecstasy, how different is the state of ecstasy that a hazard will be in to a state of ecstasy induced by a drug?
No, well, it certainly doesn't promote intellectual thought. The question is we're talking about not driving yourself into a state of ecstasy where one is experiencing very close, very high degree of emotional closeness to God. We're talking about in this Mishnah what's going to get you to be able to function intellectually on a higher level. The Hasidim, when they're trying to achieve ecstasy, they're not trying to achieve intellect. If anything, intellect is negative.
Community with God, I think.
That's not what, no, it's not what this Mishnah is about. This Mishnah is about how to acquire Torah, intellectual acquisition. So that one fit into this. Okay, so that's that one. That's Yishuv. And then it's interesting, the Mishnah here brings down a couple of things which you wouldn't expect it to come earlier. It's interesting that they come here. And the Maharal doesn't even explain them because they're so obvious, which are Mikra and Mishnah, which are learning Tanakh and learning Mishnayos. It seems that all the things we learn till now, you have to have before you start being able to fully understand what's going on. So as you look at all the things we did now, all that you took were traits. They're all aspects of a learning personality. And now it says, once you have that learning personality down pat, then you can start learning Mikra and Mishnah. Now, I don't know, that's why it's difficult to apply this. When I read this Mishnah, I always think of Rabbi Akiva. Like somebody who's 40 years old and starting for the first time to learn. Because it's hard to see by a little kid that a little kid is going to acquire all these traits, which we described before. Tranquil mind, awe, fear, intelligence, understanding. It seems you first start teaching him the stuff, and then hopefully it develops over time. So I think that here, when the Mishnah is talking about this is the way you acquire Torah, we're already talking to somebody who has, a fully developed intellect, emotion, or telling him you want to approach Torah at your level, this is the way you approach Torah, because otherwise we would have started the Mishnah with Mikra and Mishnah instead of the beginning. You learn first Tanakh, the Bible, and then you learn the Mishnayos afterwards. So I assume that's why it's over here, again, because one has to work on these things before. The direction of the Bali Musar, the people who are in the Musar movement, always had before they began learning Gemara in the morning, they always have a short Musar Seder, trying to involve themselves in working on their character traits, right, and their personalities, which had nothing to do with what they were about to learn, the Gemara that they were about to learn, which could have been a highly technical piece of, halacha. And the reason why they did that is because it's axiomatic that Torah can only be approached out of a personality, it can only be approached fully, when the personality is developing itself in a more refined manner. So therefore, it's similar to that, this mission, which all the many types of refinement preceded the level where one began to actually come into learning. One has to come into learning with a certain sense of refinement. And this is interesting because it connects us to a statement made by Reb Chaim Vital. Reb Chaim Vital was one of the great students of Zari, the 15th, 16th century Kabbalist in Sfat. And he asked a question, it's a very important question to ask, which is, the Torah never says explicitly that you should have a good pair of character traits, what's called Hebrew midos. Never says you're supposed to have good midos. Never says you shouldn't get angry. It never says you shouldn't be a miser. It never says you should be patient, you should be tolerant. It never says you should be nice. Why didn't it say all these things? The Torah has lots and lots of mitzvahs, but it never specifically, or very rarely, and almost never, speaks about character traits, personality, and all that kind of stuff. The Talmud is full of it, right? It tells us that, and especially Pirkei Avos, has many, many things about your personality and character, but not the Torah itself. So Chaim Vital says, along the lines which we were just been saying, that the Torah is a second stage. We say earlier in Pirkei Avos, Derech Eretz Chadma LaTorah. Derech Eretz Chadma LaTorah means human perfection, or at least striving for human perfection, precedes Torah. And therefore the Torah itself, the 5 books of Moses, can only be approached after a person has fixed his character traits. So therefore, the Torah doesn't dwell on it. It says, you know what, this is stage 2 already. We're assuming something has taken place before you come to learn Torah. In a way, although he doesn't say this in Chaim Vital, but you can understand that based on this, another chazal, another statement of the rabbis, which says that the discussions of the slaves of the forefathers, that's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is considered to be more precious than the Torah of the children, meaning the children of Israel. And I want to consider an example. The Gemara says that when Eliezer came to find a wife for Yitzchak, for Isaac, and he came to the house of Bethuel and Lavan, and eventually he took Rivka back to be the wife. So it tells the story twice. First it tells the story as it happened, and then the Torah relates how Eliezer, the servant, recounted the entire story to the members of the household. Now, I came today to the well, my master sent me, he gave me all this stuff, I came to the well, and so on and so forth. So a tremendous amount of verses which are dedicated to the story, redundant verses. At the same time, the Gemara says, you have so many issues in the Torah which are just alluded to, like Summa and Tara, the Summa, the impurity of certain types of, dead beings, dead creatures, or Shabbos itself. Most of the laws of Shabbos are extrapolated from the Mishkan, from how they built the tabernacle, are not explicit in Torah at all. They're not mentioned. It's just alluded to in a very, very brief and terse allusion. So the understanding of that is that the reason why we have Bereshis, the book of Genesis, which has very few mitzvos and very, very little halacha in it, preceding the other 4 parts of the Torah, which have most of the Jewish law, is because one has to learn how to conduct oneself, how to behave, and the Torah spends more time discussing that, relatively speaking, than spends talking about the actual halacha, because that is a precondition. So therefore, one has to work on one's personality as a precondition to accomplishing greatness in Torah. If one doesn't work on one's personality, then the Torah is not full Torah. So it can't be completely grasped and understood, because by definition, Torah is a refining quality. If you're it has a refining quality to it. If you don't approach Torah with the attitude, I want to be refined, and I'm working on it, then that nuance of Torah will be lost to you. This is interesting because the Ramban in Parashas Nachmanides, in Parashas Kitefet, in Dvarim, he says, he brings down another statement of the rabbis, which is very, very important, which is that it says in this Medrash, it says, do you think God cares how you slaughter an animal? Whether you slaughter it from the front of the neck, we slaughter from the front of the neck. Whether you slaughter from the back of the neck. Why did God tell us, you should slaughter an animal, make sure to slaughter it from the front, or not from the back? So for God, what does it make? What does he care? Why does he have to tell us this? So the Medrash says the reason is because if you slaughter from the front of the neck, it's a more humane type of slaughter. The animal suffers less. And that's meat, that's what it says. And the mitzvahs were given to refine people. The mitzvahs were given to us in order to refine us, in order to make us more refined, more elevated, more transcendent people. So therefore, it works both ways. In other words, you're supposed to approach the Torah with an attitude that you're already working on refining your personality, and then Torah tips you, enables you to refine your personality to a greater extent. So it's a cyclical thing. But you have to first begin with refinement and end with refinement. And if you find somebody who doesn't have that refinement, then there's going to be something wrong with their Torah as well. It's not fully penetrating their being. They're not fully receptive of what its values are, and that's a problem. Okay? So that's why Mikra and Mishnah, I think, why Mikra and Mishnah, the actual material, took parts of the Torah, come later than the things before. Now, the next thing, Miut Schora, you've got to take a look at the next few, and you're on the last one, page 582, they all have similar language. In the Yarn School, it uses the word limited. In the English, in the Hebrew, it uses mute, right? The Miut Schora, limited business activity, Miut Derech Eretz, limited sexual activity, it's really translated here, Miut Shena, limited sleep, Miut Kindness, sorry. Limited pleasure, Miut Shena, limited sleep, Miut Sicha, limited conversation, Miut Chok, limited laughter. So, the simple understanding of the Mishnah, which is one legitimate understanding, is that what the Torah is telling, the Mishnah is telling you, listen, you want to be an intellectual as opposed to just a regular person, you got to limit these activities. You have to make sure to transcend these activities which are material, and to a certain extent even mystic, and try and focus yourself on more intellectual, more abstract things. So you have to diminish your involvement in all these things. That's a simple understanding. But I just happened last week, there's a very, very powerful idea I'm about to tell you. And I only saw it myself for the first time by sheer accident a week ago. I've been waiting to try to tell it over. The Grog, the Vilna Gaon says, and this is totally out of character for what you think about the Vilna Gaon, or at least right for the Vilna Gaon. He says, he speaks specifically about the Miut Sicha one, which means limited conversation. But it obviously would apply to all the rest of them as well. He said, Miut Sicha doesn't mean you should diminish the amount of conversation. It means a person who learns Torah day and night and doesn't take any time out to have normal conversation with somebody, so his personality will be distorted. He won't come out being a normal person. There'll be something wrong with him. At some point, either he'll snap, he'll have like a breakdown, or he'll become a weirdo. So therefore, what?
Could be a hermit.
Whatever, yeah. So therefore, the Mishnah is telling us, according to that understanding of the Gra, Miut Sicha, it's important for the scholars to take a little bit of time out to what we say, to call what we do, to do schmoozing. What? Yeah, vodka, right. The schmoozing, lots of the same idea. So if you understand it that way, like the Gra, and you understand the rest of them that way, it's a very, very different lesson altogether. What it means is that a person should not attempt to be involved in intellectual pursuits 24/7. 24/7, 365. Shouldn't work. It can't work that way. It's impossible for a human being. For an angel, it would be possible. But you're not an angel. You are a human being. So as a human being, there are certain things that a person has to be involved with in order to maintain that humanity, which is part and parcel of the human condition. So if you look at it that way, the Mishnah reads very, very beautifully. The Mishnah says that you have to have a little bit of commerce, right? A little bit of commercial activity. That's what Torah is. So it means he doesn't have to actually go out and make money, per se. He doesn't have to go out and sell. What?
Trade story.
Yes, no. It means he has to understand the world of commerce. In other words, the person has to, even if I'm a chacham, a person wants to be a great scholar, much scholarship depends on understanding how the commercial world works. It has to do a lot with, because the entire section of Shulchan Aruch, called Choshen Mishpat, is all about the laws of commercial activity and financial markets and all those things which occur when a person is involved in transacting business. So therefore, a person can't understand fully what the Torah is about unless the person understands what the realm of commercial activity is about, to at least some limited extent. He doesn't have to go out and get a degree in economics, but he has to have a little bit of an understanding. Mute derech eretz, like it says here, limited sexual activity. The Gemara says that the rabbis made certain restrictions, which were meant in order that Talmidei Chachamim, in order that scholars, this is the way the Gemara puts it, should not frequent their wives like roosters. I guess roosters are very promiscuous. I don't know how exactly a chicken coop works, but I guess if you leave a rooster alone for a lot of times, then he gets very busy. So the Gemara says that a Talmid Chacham should not have that kind of, promiscuity, even with his own wife. They made limitations, but they didn't say abstain altogether. That's an idea which is foreign to Judaism. There's one exception in Jewish history to that, which is Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was told he was angelic. He was almost on the level of an angel. He had this unique relationship with God, so he was told, you know what, for you it's not necessary. You should stay away from it. But for everybody else who's not on the level of Moshe Rabbeinu, on the contrary, if you you see this in the Catholic priests, right? I don't have to tell you, this is all current events, right? You see that if people are told to abstain, then all sorts of negative byproducts occur. So therefore, so he said, a little bit of derech eretz, whatever the rabbis say, is something which is moderate, so that's necessary for a person to have. It's interesting, the Gemara, the Mishnah says in the Mishnah says somewhere that a Talmid Chacham is supposed to have a relations with his wife once a week. That's what the Gemara says. So Moshe Feinstein was asked, I don't know, I don't know if the question actually has written it in the Gross Moshe in his response. I don't think that it actually says who asked the question, because it would be probably somewhat embarrassing. But he said, my wife wants to have relations more often. Is that permissible? Right? So I guess he was a scholar, and he was asking whether it's permissible to do it more than once a week. So he said, Moshe Feinstein, in our day and age, when the world is more licentious, so therefore it penetrates our society, and one has to make make concessions to that. So he said, yes, okay. So the idea is, again, it's not necessarily a precise formula, but rather it's meant to be to be a measure, not to be too much involved and not completely to separate oneself.
One question: derech eretz doesn't mean respect more than.
Yeah, but here it's a euphemism, obviously. Sometimes derech eretz in the Torah means in Shas means proper behavior towards another person. Sometimes it means work, actual labor or being involved in society, and sometimes it means it's a euphemism for sexual relations. So depending on the context, it can have different meanings.
The other issue, talking about the roosters. Roosters are known for being extremely aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how they are aggressive sexually, like the bull.
Okay.
But what they're saying here is contain your aggression.
Right. Okay. So that's the idea. It's a mute derech eretz. Then the next one is mute tzaddik. So that's the same idea. If you understand it simply, it means that a person has diminished the amount of pleasures which a person has. But on the flip side is that a little bit of pleasure is okay. It depends how you use the pleasure and how far you go. And that's probably very difficult to know precisely the boundaries. There's a very well-known Gemara. The Gemara says that there was a certain Talmid Chacham who said that it's not possible for him to learn well unless he has fatty meat, and basically fatty meat was considered to be good, right? So unless he has fatty meat and old wine, good wine. So there's certain people have greater need for pleasures, some people have less of a need for pleasures. The Mishnah said before that, copy backwards, let's take a look at the later Mishnah. The Mishnah Dalet, the Mishnah 4 on the same page, 582, 582, a little bit further up. So it says, this is the way of Torah. Eat bread with salt, drink water in small measure, sleep on the ground, live a life of deprivation, but toil is Torah. If you do this, you are praiseworthy and all is well with you. You are praiseworthy in this world and all is well with you in the world to come. So this is the way the article goes. It says that asceticism is not being advocated here. One who is wealthy is not expected to cast away his wealth in the pursuit of Torah. Rather, this is a general call for moderation and an address to the poor person. Even if you are poverty-stricken, do not neglect Torah study to pursue tangible wealth. The serenity of Torah can be experienced even in privation, and one must always be prepared to sacrifice his personal comfort on behalf of the Torah, which is actually two separate statements. A, if you're poor, you should learn Torah anyway, and B, a person should be prepared to surrender comforts of life in order to study Torah. But it doesn't mean that you have to. If you have no choice but to surrender them, so then you don't surrender them. But there's not a reason, to go pitch a tent outside and sleep in the wet instead of sleeping inside a nice warm room. You don't have to sleep on the floor if you have a bed. If you don't have a bed, then you should be prepared to sleep on the floor. But otherwise, you're not required to go and do it. So that's the idea of every person is created with a need for a certain amount of pleasure. And that's why the mitzvah on Shabbos, which we have, is Oneg Shabbos.
Right.
Oneg Shabbos means pleasure of Shabbos. And Rebecca writes in a piece, something I've quoted many times, he said that a person does not fulfill the mitzvah of Shabbos if the person doesn't enjoy Shabbos. A person has to enjoy Shabbos, otherwise there's something lacking in their Shabbos. The Mishnah Berurah, the Chaf Chaim in his introduction to Hilchos Shabbos, the Mishnah Berurah said, you must learn the halachos of Shabbos. Why? Because it's not possible to keep Shabbos unless you know the halachos, and they're many and complex. And maybe you'll say, you know what, I don't have to learn halachos, I'll just sit on my stool all day, I'll sit down in a chair, and I won't do anything. And that way I'll be safe. The Mishnah Berurah says, no, then you lose also, because then you didn't fulfill Oneg Shabbos. And you don't fulfill Shabbos unless you enjoy the Shabbos. So therefore, just sitting and refraining is not enough. You actually have to actively go out and enjoy Shabbos, and that's why the mitzvah of Shabbos, of course. And Yom Tov, which comes more frequently, but the Shabbos more to have pleasure, in other words, to eat, to drink, and all that kind of stuff, in order that a person specifically should have that that little bit of pleasure which is necessary in order to keep a person going.
Especially sex. No, really. I'm not.
Especially, well,
that's what I would have thought.
You want to say, yeah. So that's one part of it, but that's for people. Not all people get it all the time because they're married because half a month for many Jewish males their wife is nida, so then they're stuck. So the idea is that you find Shabbos, you find pleasure on Shabbos in alternative ways. Ideally speaking, it should be a measure, a mixture of various different pleasures, but they're supposed to be done, and the Torah does dictate that, at least on a regular interval once a week. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry.
The questions about sexual things like that.
Maybe not today. Sex and drugs are the same day.
No, I know.
What?
Yeah. I don't know if it would actually be possible to have that class on Magic Market. That might be too tricky.
The next one, of course, Miut Shena, says about the Grud, the Magon. I had a friend who was able to do this, actually, that he would sleep 2 hours out of every 24. And it would be learning almost all the entire rest of the time. Actually, when I was in high school, I needed 7 hours of sleep a day. And I was able, through the years of being in yeshiva, to work that down to 4 hours a day. Now, it doesn't, which is now my minimum is 4 hours a day. Doesn't mean I won't be grumpy the rest of the day. I will be able to function the rest of the day. So again, according to the Gra, it can work both ways. I can tell you, you're supposed to diminish the amount of sleep you get, right? To work it down because you shouldn't have to sleep that much, right? Which is interesting because the Rambam and other sources don't advocate diminishing the amount of sleep. The Rambam said, he contradicts himself. In one place he says you need 6 hours of sleep. In another place he says you need 8 hours of sleep. And the Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, who was a great sage of the 20th century, lived here in Monsey, used to tell people that they should sleep always 8 hours a night. So I haven't tried that in many years, except on Shabbos, really. But I don't know, maybe the mind does work better if you do get more sleep.
How many hours did my mother sleep a night?
Almost nothing.
No?
No, he was telling other people what to do. Yeah.
That's what I...
Yeah, he was busy all the time. Yeah, he really had almost no time to do anything other than advise people. People used to do all sorts of things.
He was practicing.
Yeah. Yeah, he just doesn't stay in the workplace. Yeah.
Silly questions. Before we had a lecture.
Oh, you missed a great class today. Okay, Tom, tell me the course.
Before we had a lecture,
What?
People, once it gets dark, will people study around fires, candles, because for whatever electric light, people used to sleep to nature.
Yeah, there's a story about, said about Rabbi Ruderman, who was a Rosh Yeshiva in Baltimore for many years, founding Yeshiva in Baltimore near Yisrael. Yeah, he had very poor eyesight, very poor eyesight. And one of the ways in which he ruined his eyes was because at night when there was no light, he used to go out and study by the moon.
By the moon.
Yeah, there was no, because they're poor, and they don't even always have candles. Right, but the Gemara already, and certainly the Rambam, advocates artificially staying up at night by candles and learning at night. The Rambam says the mind is clearer at night than during the day, I guess because of the distractions you have during the day, and therefore they said the person really wants to acquire Torah, they have to stay up at night and learn. So yes, most people would adjust their schedules based on darkness and light, but already back then the Gemara says it doesn't work for everybody.
How does that work with, and I've only read the Rosh Hashanah once, someone make out it's something to do with like the night being tainted and
No, that's about learning Tanakh at night. There's a special, the Kabbalists say not to learn at night. They say a person's not supposed to learn the Bible at night. I don't know if that's referring to, but that's something which Kabbalists say, and it's because the reason is because based on Kabbalah, the day is considered a time of kindness, of chesed, and mercy, and the night is considered to be a time of din, of judgment. And also, Teresh B'Ksav, the written Torah, is considered to be more judgmental than Teresh B'Al Peh, the oral law. That's what, for example, Teresh B'Ksav said, if you hurt somebody, an eye for an eye, right? And Teresh B'Al Peh comes and mitigates that and says, no, it really means money, right? Because Teresh B'Al Peh, Teresh B'Ksav, right, the way things should be. In an ideal world, we'll stone you for the smallest offense, and we'll fine you with great and large amounts of money, and so on and so forth. But then Teresh B'Al Peh says, because yes, that is an ideal world, a world where everything would be run according to strict judgment, but God saw that doesn't work, and therefore He recreated the world with a mixture of mercy and judgment. So therefore, the Kabbalists say, that one is not supposed to study the Torah B'Ksav, the written law, at night, at least not till after midnight.
The Archbishop does divide the day according to certain I think even domain is the language and mentions the giving over of the night to the certain elements in the world.
So I imagine that's what it has to do with. I saw this morning actually that Rizal says the reason why one doesn't cut one's hair during Sfiras HaOmer is because Sfiras HaOmer is a time of judgment. That's why I guess the students of Rabbi Akiva said to have died then, and therefore cutting the hair is somehow invoking judgment. I don't know exactly how that works, but generally speaking, the way the Kabbalists regard it is that the hair of the beard represents kindness. Because it comes out of your face and you're smiling, and then you have a kind face, and therefore the hair of your beard represents kindness, whereas the hair of the head represents judgment. So therefore, you're supposed to keep the hair of your beard as long as possible. Chassidim, of course, don't cut it at all, because that would be cutting off kindness. Whereas the hair of your head, you're supposed to cut short, because that represents judgment. But for some reason, nevertheless, you're supposed to get a cut before Sfiras HaOmer, not during Sfiras HaOmer, somehow. That brings out the judgmental aspect. Okay, we'll stop here for today. Let's go back into our things.
Thank you very much. Something about math, because Francis father is also based in math. He has also capability of asking questions, so I feel he gives you answer. You forget about questions, I think about it, and and also Milton Eric.
Personality, people who go into it.
No, he doesn't go like father. He picked up it. He's coming with this shop. I want to say to you what you're going to read. And I have less things to think about. And Milton Erickson, he's a very famous hypnotherapist. He found that they can do a lot of things in France. Like, let's say, if you're fashion designer, you can design a lot of clothes. Quite fun. Like, you do pictures, you see pictures, it takes time to make it real, but in your mind you see it. But math, people cannot count math. People need to use like really not like unconscious mind. People need to use like this cycle, like maybe it's why people don't go to this trance all the time. They don't stay out.
Okay. Did you like? Yeah. Oh, good class.
Yeah. Don't worry, already. No rock and roll.